What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate. Welcome to my first true video back in a long time. I know it's been a long time, but I do feel like that the changes I talked about in my previous video are going to benefit me. So today I'm going to be giving you guys my preseason power rankings for the Big Ten. I know I gave you some rankings back in the summer on these teams, but my opinions on them have changed a little bit. So let's go ahead and take a look at my preseason power rankings. And at number 14, I feel like this is an easy one. It is the Rutgers Scarlet Knights coming in here at number 14. And you see I have a new format for power rankings. So I'm going to be giving you the rankings trend, if they moved up or down, how many spots, what they did last week, what they did next week, and I'll give you some basic stats for them as well. So Rutgers' first game is going to be against Michigan State. I don't see how Michigan State's going to be that good, but I don't see – Rutgers just has a lot to figure out. They are going to get Greg Schiano back at head coach. They do have a pretty darn good running back there as well. But again, we've kind of been waiting for this Rutgers team to see if they can win a Big Ten game, and it hasn't really quite manifested itself quite yet. They haven't got back in the bowl game contention. As of what's known this season, with COVID and all this weirdness, I don't see how Rutgers is going to get back into that mix, which is why I have them down here at number 14. At number 13, I have the Maryland Terrapins. I think I overhyped this team in the summer. I think I was a little too high on Maryland with Tulia transferring in. I just think that I really did overshoot expectations for this team. I think this team can be decent, but as of right now, I have to put them at 13 because I don't see how Maryland is going to be all that great this year either. Again, with Tulia, they have Josh Jackson there as well at quarterback. But overall, when you look at this team, there is just a lot of room for improvement. There's a lot of space for this team to just improve. And until I can see that Maryland make some changes, they are going to sit down here at number 13. Their first game is against Northwestern. I'll talk about Northwestern here in a little bit, but I do feel like Maryland can be decent if they make some major changes this year. Again, I don't know that that is going to happen, but this year has been crazy in other conferences. Maybe it can be crazy in the Big Ten, but I do not see Maryland pulling off any big upset anytime soon. That's why they're at number 13. Moving right along here to number 12. I talked about them a little bit when I talked about Rutgers, but that is because they are playing Rutgers in week 1. Is the Michigan State Spartans, and again, with Mark D'Antonio leaving, bringing in the old coach from Colorado to coach here at Michigan State. I think he could get some good success, possibly. I don't know. Michigan State's a hard team to figure out. They really are. I think they're going to take a step back from where they were last year. They made a bowl game last year and beat Wake Forest when I didn't think they were going to. I don't feel like, again, we don't know how bowl games are going to work this year, but I don't feel like they're going to make a bowl game this year. I just have this funny feeling that Michigan State is just not going to be good enough this year. They are losing a lot, including Brian Lewerke at quarterback. Scott is gone as well. A lot of great players are leaving Michigan State as well. Michigan State's just a hard team to figure out. I got to put them down here at number 12 because there's so much uncertainty with the Spartans team. We'll have to see how good they look week 1 against Rutgers. Coming in at number 11 here is the Illinois Fighting Illini. Now, don't let this number 11 spot in the power rankings fool you. Illinois is still a solid team. They get Wisconsin their first week of the season. And I definitely think that this has the potential to be a decent team. Lovie Smith has done a great job with this team. Again, they knocked off Wisconsin last year for a big upset and made a bowl game for the first time in a long time. This team is slowly rising under Lovie Smith, and I think this team could pull off an upset if they wanted to this year. Again, with just all this weirdness, we'll have to see how good they can get. I think there's too much uncertainty with Illinois as well, which is why I have them down here at number 11. But I would not be surprised if Illinois ends up jumping pretty pretty decently high on these power rankings board as the season gets started. All right, coming in at number 10 is my biggest change from the summer. It's the Northwestern Wildcats. I underhyped this Northwestern team. I really think I did. This Northwestern team, I feel, looking and doing some more research for you guys, I think this Northwestern team can be dangerous. They get Maryland their first week of the season. I think it'll be a nice, easy one. I'm not going to show you the lines. I will show that in the video coming up where I preview week 1 in the Big Ten. But Northwestern is just, I don't know. I have to see how Northwestern plays too. Northwestern's a hard team to hype up too because you don't want to underhype them like I did in the summer, but you don't want to overhype them like I'm sure people are going to say I'm doing with them right now. It's hard to figure out a couple of these teams in the Big Ten. But Northwestern, I feel, has a lot of potential. They are returning a lot on both sides of the football, one of the highest teams in returning production from last season. We'll have to see how they play on the field. I'm interested to see how the Northwestern Wildcats get going in 2020 as they open against Maryland. Coming in at number 9 is a team that I feel like can make some noise. It's the Purdue Boilermakers. Rondo Moore had initially opted out of the season, now has opted back into the season. And with guys like Jack Plummer and Elijah Sindlar back there at quarterback, this team could be really dangerous offensively. Offensively, this could be a really, really good team. They get Iowa in week 1. We'll talk about Iowa here in a little bit. They're another hard team to figure out. But Purdue, I don't see any reason why Purdue can't exceed everybody's expectations. They really could. They could exceed everyone. The West is really hard to figure out in the Big Ten, but I do feel like that Purdue is a nice, solid team in the West that can make some noise this year. They definitely have the pieces on both sides of the ball to do so. I think Jeff Brom has done an absolutely phenomenal job the past couple of years. Now he's not going to be on the sideline for week 1. Talk about that more again in the video where I preview week 1, as he's not going to be coaching as he has tested positive for COVID-19. But I think Purdue has some great talent. I'm really excited to see this team take the field in 2020. Well, we just talked about Purdue. Now let's talk about who they have to face week 1. And that is the Iowa Hawkeyes. Iowa's another hard team to figure out. They're usually towards the mid-range or top of the Big Ten, winning at least 8 games every year under Kirk Ferentz. But with all the stuff that's been going on at Iowa in the offseason and with COVID and all this other weirdness, Iowa, to me, is going to take a step back. I'm not expecting as much from the Hawkeyes as I am. They still have some pretty darn good playmakers there at Iowa, but, I mean, I don't see how Iowa does as good as they've done past season. Now, I could be wrong on that. I am expecting Iowa to take a step back. I'm not going to be surprised if they take a couple steps back, but this team is hard to figure out. I think they're going to be an interesting team to watch on the field as well when it comes to Big Ten season. At number 7, I have the Nebraska Cornhuskers, another hard team to figure out. What is it with the Big Ten having a lot of hard teams to figure out? But Nebraska is a team that we've expected to do good for years and years and years, and they haven't really done anything. This year, I'm expecting a slight step up from Nebraska, at least from where they've been in previous seasons. I expect them to compete more. I expect them to be in there. Now, it doesn't help that their first game is against Ohio State, and the schedule makers didn't do them any favors by putting them up against Penn State as well. Keep in mind they do get that game at home, but it's not, I mean, come on, they get Ohio State week 1. How is that any fair to Nebraska? You'd probably say that about any team that gets up against Ohio State week 1, right? But Nebraska, of course, led by quarterback Adrian Martinez. That defense this year is hard to figure out. It's really going to be led by DiCaprio Bootle. I feel like that cornerback, defensive back, I do think he is going to be, especially since Lamar Jackson is out, I do think DiCaprio Bootle is going to be that guy. There are a lot of young guys that Nebraska really, really likes that they brought in recruiting. I think this team could do some good stuff this year. I really do want to see how they play Ohio State. I'm not expecting too much from them. Like, I'm not expecting them to go to the Big Ten championship or anything, but I am expecting them to take a step up from where they have been in previous seasons. We'll have to see if they can. Week 1 against Ohio State. Coming in at number 6 is the Indiana Hoosiers, who's going to open up with Penn State. That's a sneaky pick for an upset bid, but I'll talk more about that again in my preview video. But Indiana, this is an interesting team. This is an interesting team. Indiana, I think, is an underhyped team. I think they're underrated. I think this team is going to be capable of much more than they're giving credit for. When you look at their quarterback position, Michael Penix is going to be there. You're also going to have Whop Fillier out there at wide receiver, who I think is going to be Michael Penix's big number 1 target. The defense is the only question for me with Indiana. I need to see how the defense can play. But Indiana should be a team that's fairly competitive in the Big Ten this year. Now, they do play in the Big Ten East, and the East is really, really competitive. But again, I think that Indiana has a shot to pull off some upsets. They've been close against Penn State a couple of years. Last year, even made it a game. But I think Indiana is as good as any team ranked in the top 25, in the bottom half of that top 25, and they haven't even played a down of football yet. It's going to be interesting to see how this team performs on the field week 1 against a gritty Penn State team. Coming in at number 5, I made a little change here. I did have it as Michigan in the preseason, but it is Minnesota here at number 5. Minnesota lost a lot on defense. If you remember back to the summer, they had, I think, 33% returning production on defense. That is absolutely abysmal. Again, that it includes losing Antoine Winfield, and they were going to lose Rashad Bateman as well. He was going to go prepare for the NFL draft, but then found out the season was going to kick off, and he said, I went back in, was granted immediate eligibility, and that's where I think a lot of Minnesota's offense is going to come from, that connection between Tanner Morgan and Rashad Bateman. It really is going to be those two guys combining for a lot of touchdowns this year if Minnesota wants to win some key games, and they have a big one in week 1 against Michigan. It's a big game early on in the Big Ten season. Sorry, guys, I'm going to take my hat off. It's a big game in the Big Ten season. It's going to shape out really well for Minnesota, I feel. I feel like this team is either going to perform to be underrated or overrated. One of the two. There's going to be no in-between with Minnesota this year. They're either going to be good or they're going to be bad. We're going to have to see how Minnesota performs. And at number 4 is Michigan, the Wolverines, who I underhyped and made some wrong comments about, and by that I mean just factually incorrect, so I do apologize for that. They are returning their 1-2 punch at running back with Hassan Haskins and Zach Charbonnet, but they did lose Tariq Black to transfer to Texas. They also lost Nico Collins. He transferred out. He's going to prepare for the NFL draft. It was either Nico Collins or Ronnie Bell that went away to prepare for the NFL draft, but I'm pretty sure it's Nico Collins. So Ronnie Bell, I do believe, is coming back. You can correct me in the comment section if I am wrong, but I'm pretty sure that Ronnie Bell is coming back. But he is really the only big guy coming back. They're also going to have to break in a new quarterback, and it sounds like that's going to be Joe Milton. I had predicted that to be Dylan McCaffrey, but it sounds like Joe Milton is going to be the guy to start there for Michigan. I would not be surprised if Dylan McCaffrey gets a couple reps. But this Michigan team is going to be interesting to watch. I feel like they have high expectations this year, and I feel like Harbaugh's job might be on the line if Michigan does not do something great this year. And by great, I mean beating Ohio State. Am I right? I feel like Jim Harbaugh's time at Michigan could be limited. We'll have to see how they perform on the field, though. I'm excited to watch this team on the field as well. Moving on in, we're in the top 3 now. Third is Wisconsin, and I had to put the Badgers up here. They are the highest team ranked out of the West in this poll. I'm sure you guys know who number 2 and number 1 is by now, but My thoughts on Wisconsin are, well, I don't know. I feel like they have some good players. They, especially defensively, they have a lot of good players. Of course, losing Jonathan Taylor is going to hurt, but Jack Cohn is coming back, the left-handed passer. He could put up some big numbers this year. Wisconsin's a team that we're just going to have to wait and see how they perform on Friday as they play Illinois. Yes, it is a Friday game. We're just going to have to see how Wisconsin performs and if they can leave off where they left off last year. Wisconsin's a team for me that I really don't know quite that much about just because there's a lot of uncertainty. I know they have potentially good players. I know they're losing some players that they really would like to use this year, but we'll have to see what they end up doing this season. It'll be interesting to watch the Badgers as they square off against Illinois in week 1. They are number 3. Number 2 is Penn State, which means you guys know who number 1 is by now, but Penn State, I think, has a tough game at Indiana. Now, this team is suffering a big loss. Micah Parsons is not going to be playing. He has opted out. And Journey Brown might not play the 2020 season due to just strains of injuries. So Penn State really could lose their best defensive player and, in my opinion, best offensive player for the 2020 season. They already lost their best defensive player to Micah Parsons. He has opted out. Now they could lose Journey Brown as well. That has neither been confirmed nor denied. But rumors are out there that Journey Brown could miss could miss the entirety of the season. And if that happens, Penn State is in some trouble. Penn State is in a lot of trouble, and I look for a lot of people to pick that Indiana game as a potential upset. But Penn State still comes in at number 2 here. I feel like they have too much talent. I still feel like Sean Clifford's going to be a decent quarterback for Penn State. But Penn State, again, when you look ahead at that schedule, they have to play Indiana. That's going to be a tough, gritty game. Then they have to play Ohio State that very next week. And I think it's really going to depend on if Journey Brown comes back or not. We'll have to see how long they can hold this number 2 spot. In my power rankings, that's where they sit right now. And, of course, by now, you guys know who number 1 is. It's Ohio State. I mean, projected to be the most dominant offensive team in the country this year, not even mentioned defensively. Ohio State has a lot figured out. I think the only potential problem that Ohio State fans see, including myself, is that defensive line position. That defensive line may be lacking some depth. The starters are no question unbelievably good, but the depth kind of lacking a little bit. I know a lot of people have questions about the cornerback situation as well. But I do feel like that Ohio State is going to get those positions figured out. It's going to be a good young defensive team, and on offense, Ohio State's bringing in a lot of weapons. You have Julian Fleming coming in, you have G. Scott coming in, you have Mookie Cooper coming in, you have Jackson Scott and Jibba coming in. Not to mention Trey Sermon is coming over from Oklahoma. You also have Master Teague in the back. I mean, this Ohio State team is just absolutely loaded. There's no question they are number 1 in the Big Ten. They are by far the favorite in the Big Ten, and for good reason as well. This Ohio State team has a shot at winning the national title this year if the playoff committee feels that they are deserving of going to the college football playoff. Guys, Ohio State is the definitive number 1 here. They open up play against Nebraska. We will have to see how Ohio State starts off this season. It's been a weird year, and some big teams have fallen early. We'll have to see if Ohio State will shatter that trend or continue it. All right, guys, that is my Big Ten preseason power rankings. It feels good to be back behind the camera for you guys. I'm really excited for this Big Ten season, and I'm looking forward to covering it for you guys. If you guys enjoyed, please leave a like. Also consider subscribing if you are brand new to the channel, or you just enjoy my content. Turn on notification bells so you do not miss an upload, and you can join Tailgate Nation. Also, leave a comment down below. Tell me if you are excited for Big Ten football. I know I am. And until next time, always remember, play hard, but tailgate harder. I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.